What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of JohnnyVTV Live. I'm yours truly, JohnnyVTV. Join with me, my boy Kyle Donnelly, sans Nick Durst today. What's up, Kyle?
What's going on there, Johnny? How we doing? Another day? Another hustle?
Yeah, man. You know, I know we're not talking baseball today, but we're just talking about those Mets, man. I need them to turn it around, pick it up. Daddy's got a lot of money on the line. I would like to win a nice little bet coming into the fall for the football season. Right. So if the Mets could at least make the playoffs and make me happy.
Build a little momentum, get going. Yeah. I gotcha.
But, dude, we got a great guest today. Speaking of making me happy, we're talking football. And guess what? We're dabbling into college football as well. Somebody who knows both spaces very well. We got OrangeBloods college football analyst and writer Michael Rochman joining us. Let's bring him out. What's up, man? How you doing today?
Doing all right. Thanks, guys, for having me on the show. Excited to be here.
Great to have you with us. Now, does that apply to not just Texas, but like the other Orange teams, such as Clemson and the ACC and all the other big Power 5 schools?
Hey, I'll try my best. All the way from Texas down to UTSA, UTEP. I got it all. Right.
What about Miami too? You throw that in there?
Oh yeah, big De'Aaron King fan here.
Okay.
All right, Mike. So let's get right into it. Who are the rookies to look out for in 2021? Who's winning the offensive rookie of the year? Who's winning the defensive rookie of the year? There's a lot of names, especially on the offensive side, that we could look out for. And obviously, is it definitely going to be Trevor Lawrence? Who are you thinking?
Yeah, so I think the big thing to touch on is the fact that a lot of narratives kind of get followed. Last year we saw it with the defensive rookie of the year situation. Chase Young won, even though maybe Jeremy Chin had a very strong case to be the winner of that award. So it kind of follows Chase Young had this notable brand around him. So for this year, I kind of look at it in the QB section. The big talk was the big five quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, even Mac Jones in there. So it's really probably going to be whoever the best QB of that five is. Obviously, there's the case for guys like Travis Etienne and other running backs that are going to get a bulk of carries and opportunities. But really, I think it comes down to which QB is really going to make that big step. And I look at the overall circumstance of just best supporting cast as well as really just opportunity to play. Trevor Lawrence is going to play almost every game this season. I think the offense has plenty of firepower on it. ETN, James Robinson, the backfield is definitely going to lighten the expectation of game-to-game pressure on Trevor Lawrence. So that's why he's the easy option. If I were going with a little bit of a dark horse candidate, I think Trey Lance could very well work into that section if he starts early. If Jimmy Garoppolo maybe loses the job by week 3 or something, Trey Lance is in a very nice situation to where he could put up the production and numbers to really catch attention of the NFL. But for right now, definitely riding with Trevor Lawrence on the offensive side. On the defensive side, I really look at the supporting cast as well, and I think Jamin Davis is probably going to be my pick for that section. Linebackers just rack up the tackles. He is athletic as they come at the linebacker spot, so he can make plays in coverage. He can make plays in the backfield, and that's just going to show up on the box score, which is huge for the overall just voting of rookie of the year categories. And so that's why I'm going to go with Jamin Davis, especially with that defensive line that's going to help out tremendously for his ability to kind of just take it easy in terms of expectations.
No, absolutely great point, especially when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. I mean, it's unfortunate to say, but
Trevor Lawrence seems like a shoo-in.
Yeah, but it's such a quarterback award. Like, quarterbacks always get all these awards. I mean, you got running backs like Najee Harris, Travis Etienne. But, I mean, unfortunately, Etienne's quarterback is Trevor Lawrence. I mean, of course, he's the first can't-miss prospect, especially from the quarterback position, since Andrew Luck back in, 2012? That was almost 10 years ago. Like, Trevor Lawrence cannot miss. He's the layup automatic factor. I mean, I'm excited to see what Urban Meyer. We're going to see if the Urban Meyer offense and his scheme actually translated to the NFL, because very few college coaches, including Nick Saban, could successfully make it in the NFL, even though they were spectacular at the college level. I mean, I would say probably a dark horse I would look at, and it sucks because after watching him preseason, I watched him this past week against Miami, Justin Fields, man, that kid looked good. He's looking like a guy that is probably going to be the starter sooner rather than later. I mean, I don't understand why you wouldn't start him right away. The Bears in the NFC with the 7th wild card spot, they have the ability to to get themselves in that 7th spot contention. I mean, I don't see why not. Their defense is still probably top 10. They have a lot of pieces there. They have a pretty good receiving core. Allen Robinson's one of the more underrated guys. Darnell Mooney is very underrated. He would have put up monster numbers last year had the quarterbacks been able to get him the ball. He cooked Jalen Ramsey in coverage several times, but just nobody could deliver the ball. And then you got David Montgomery. You got a guy who's going to, control the ground game with 20-plus carries. They had a Damian Williams who sat out last year with COVID. Dame Will is an absolute animal, man. He is very good. And then Tariq Cohen, when he comes back off a torn ACL, with Cole Kmet at tight end. So I would really like to see Justin Fields thrown in there earlier because I think he could really let up the box score.
Yeah, I'm a huge Justin Fields fan. He was my quarterback, too, for the overall class. It might change a little bit just based on landing spot. Trey Lance may have gotten that bump over him. Just because of overall supporting cast is so huge for quarterback's development, but still a huge Justin Fields fan. And I agree that there's a lot of potential with that Chicago Bears offense. I think the big question mark for Fields is when will he see the field and how is he going to adjust for that offensive line that's still very up in the air in terms of what is going to be their overall production for the season. I like Tevin Jenkins. Obviously, James Daniels and Cody Whitehair are phenomenal interior offensive linemen, but the rest of that offensive line is still a big question mark, and Jenkins himself as a rookie leaves some question marks as well still.
What do you think, Kyle?
Well, I'm not going to lie. I if I'm going to go opposite of Trevor Lawrence as far as an offensive rookie of the year, it's not going to be a quarterback because I don't think that Trey Lance nor Justin Fields are going to have the job by week 2 or 3. So I think that they're not going to have enough games in order to get the award. I think if you're going to look offensive player, it might be one of the wide receivers, and it could be Devontae Smith, could be Jalen Waddle, could be Jamar Chase. Depends. It really depends on volume when it comes to wide receivers with those guys. I mean, all those 3 guys right there could arguably be number ones for their teams. So
if you had to pick
see how
one,
that pans out.
If you had to pick one,
I'd have to go with Jamar Chase just simply because he's the healthiest, and I like his connection to Joe Burrow. I just simply thought that they lit up the college football world, and now I get to go join him in the NFL, and we'll see what they can do with a division that's kind of teetering a little bit as far as like the Steelers aren't on top anymore. Now it's kind of become a mix between Baltimore and Cleveland, and see if Cincinnati can somehow work themselves. And they're going to be a bottom feeder this year still, but see if they could kind of work their way in there.
Definitely a good point. I mean, it sucks because it's so quarterback driven. Like there's a ton of offensive rookie talent. I mean, I don't remember a draft class that, at least on paper, has this much offensive rookie talent in year one. I mean, maybe it's a little recency bias, but I mean, you look at it, there's more than a handful of great options at each position, especially at the skill positions, quarterbacks, running backs, receivers. I mean, you could throw a couple tight ends in there. I mean, it's just, it's absolutely crazy.
We didn't even mention Zach Wilson, but it's just, we're not even sure that he has the ability to win that award because of the talent that he's going to have out there supporting him.
I mean, yeah, the Jets is just always it's
a dumpster fire. Dumpster fire.
It is, man. It is. So with that being said, I mean, kind of piggybacking what?
If I could make a point, defensive player of the year, somebody that just jumps out in front of me, the guy that was drafted before Jamin Davis, Michael.
Parsons?
No, Jalen Phillips by the Dolphins. A solid Dolphins defense. They needed to add a pass rusher. That could be a dark horse right there for your defensive player. Defensive rookie of the year for your futures bets.
Very good. So kind of piggybacking off that, Mike, who do you think which rookie is gonna have the most immediate impact? Offense or defense?
Yeah, I think immediate impact, you got to talk about this wide receiver class. Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow come in with that immediate impact. Devonta Smith could very easily be the best wide receiver in that Eagles room. Jalen Waddle was probably on track to really derail Devonta Smith's Heisman campaign if he was able to stay healthy in that final year at Alabama, just because they'd be splitting so much production to where it'd be impossible to really reward either one. All 3 of these guys could absolutely come out and just make huge plays. Waddle has tremendous speed to really just take off and really create these highlight plays that are going to be catching people's eyes nonstop all season. You look at Devonta Smith, he has some of the best polish as a receiver. Obviously, the size question mark is there, but the ability to really create separation, accelerate, and even the ability to handle press despite his thin frame was just phenomenal. And then there's no one better at the catch point than Jamar Chase. He was just absolutely phenomenal as a physical receiver. I know there's been talk about this inability to separate. One, it's early in camp, so don't even stress that much on it, but he was able to win even just with guys in his face because he was that tough at catching the ball, making contested catches. And then there's guys like Rashad Bateman, who, I mean, is going to be out for a bit, but he could very easily step in and become a huge, reliable target for Lamar Jackson, who is desperately needing that type of guy. You know, Sammy Watkins brought in there, but even Watkins has been dealing with some inconsistencies over his career. So when Bateman is healthy and is able to step in, then that opportunity is there. And the opportunities for wide receivers in this class don't end there because there's plenty of guys in this class that are later options. You know, Rondale Moore, Elijah Moore, two very talented guys that have some talented options they need to overcome, but I think the playmaking ability is certainly there. So the wide receiver class, I think, is one we're going to be talking about for a long time in terms of just looking back at this class and saying, holy cow, it's filled with talent. But, you know, this running back class is something that I really want to touch on because if you've been paying attention to the preseason, there was one specific play that really stood out to me, and this has changed my entire mindset for fantasy football. So if you're a big fantasy person, listen in right here. So there was a game where the guard pulled out a pulling block, just an outside handoff, that's all. And the cornerback goes under the guard, takes out his legs to make the tackle. Penalties thrown. You are no longer allowed to go at the legs of pulling offensive linemen outside of the box. So outside carries are going to be overpowered this year. So if you're looking at guys that are tremendous runners with great frame,
Derrick Henry,
Najee Harris, you know, if they are pulling with Kendrick Green, pulling with whoever on that offensive line, Najee Harris can already truck so many people. He can already hurdle so many people. If he gets an extra offensive lineman that can't be taken out at the knees, then he's going to have an absolutely phenomenal season. Even with the Pittsburgh Steelers question marks on the offensive line, getting him the ball outside the hashes, he's going to make plays. So really just, you know, anyone that's going to really have those short, you know, manufactured touches, stuff like that, where they're working outside, that's huge. So guys like Rondale Moore, guys like Najee Harris, who can work outside extremely well. Even a guy like Javonte Williams, who is going to have to share that backfield with Melvin Gordon. He worked outside extremely well, despite being this 5'10", 220-pound back. So those guys that can work outside, make plays on the outside with speed and size are going to absolutely dominate. And then those wide receivers who are really good after the catch are going to have great seasons as well.
That's a great note with that pulling guard rule. And another note too with the wide receivers is that Rashad Bateman, he'll have a good year, I think, but it's going to be a little too hard for him to win Rookie of the Year, being that he's going to miss time at the beginning of the year with that groin. But I think with the top three guys, with Jamar, you know what I'm talking about, they all reunite with their college quarterbacks. I think that's huge for all three of them.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Chemistry is huge, and really, it's young quarterbacks as well that are still kind of looking for that go-to guy. Tua, Burrow, Hurts. They never really got going fully in that role. So the opportunity to find that safety blanket weapon is still very much there. And these rookies absolutely have the opportunity to get that chance.
So it's funny you brought up Javonte Williams. I was thinking about him. I've been thinking about him a lot for drafts. It's so funny, man. It's so funny how the NFL works. Melvin Gordon was looked at as one of the best backs a couple of years ago. Then he does the dumb holdout, and then not only does the holdout backfire, and he gets paid nothing. He gets paid 1 year for $8 million to go to Denver. But then he comes here. He's a timeshare back. I mean, yes, he had a solid season. He had his high moments last year. Listen, he's still young. He's still 28, 29. He's not even 30 yet. I still think he's a very good back. But now they draft.
Picked up a Dewey in the offseason.
But then they draft Javonte Williams out of UNC, who was looking like one of the steals of the draft, especially on the offensive end. So now there's no real definition on what this backfield is going to be. It might be a hot hand. It's a touch and go backfield. But I think Javonte Williams, man, just the way he looked at UNC and the way he's looked at the combine and in camp, he's going to probably be getting at least 15 touches a game. I think this kid's very explosive, and he's just going to be a game breaker. And honestly, a loaded Denver offense that's getting Cortland Sutton back. I mean, there's a lot to love about a guy like Javonte Williams. Now, obviously, if one of them goes down, the other one's going to take over the backfield and get a lot of touches. But I think I would probably early on lean with the Javonte Williams because, dude, he's a special player, and they didn't take this guy and with Melvin Gordon in the backfield just to sit on. Like, they know what they have. Like, they don't have any real ties to Melvin Gordon. They could let him walk out the door tomorrow, and they're not on the hook for like a $5 million or a 5-year, $40 million investment. Like, he was like a year-to-year player, basically.
Might even trade him.
I mean, I don't think they'll trade him because they want to see what this kid Williams does first. But like, Williams is going in the 5th, 6th round for fantasy drafts. So I really think this is a guy to take a chance on because he could be a monster.
Something I'm saying just to note is that Gordon could be traded by the trade deadline this year.
I mean, obviously, that's possible, but we got to see how Denver's doing, how Williams is doing, how Gordon's doing.
Long way to go. Just a very far off prediction by me. That's all.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and I think, when a team invests a high pick in a running back like this, whether or not the immediate impact happens like this, they still have every intention to get that guy on the field. So you don't win fantasy in week 1. You don't win it in week 2. You win it in those final weeks of the season. You saw it last year. J.K. Dobbins really got going. DeAndre Swift really got going. These rookie backs that are invested in with these higher draft picks are going to see the field eventually, even with a guy like Melvin Gordon in that backfield, who I'm probably higher on than the most, consensus opinion. I still think that the Broncos fully intend on having Javonte Williams be that guy next year to where he's the bell cow of that backfield. So this year, they aren't just going to say, okay, have 5-10 carries, Melvin Gordon's going to get a majority of the load, and then just go all season with that. No, they're going to try to get him acclimated. Maybe early on, he's struggling to find a lot of time, and you're saying, oh, this is stressful. But don't overreact to the early weeks for these rookie players, because if you're investing in rookies, you're investing in the idea that they're going to be able to step up at the end of the season. Now, if you're looking at a guy that maybe is going to get an early workload, then yeah, I can understand if you're maybe kind of stressing about the end season because a lot of guys hit that rookie wall. But when they're in that role where they're kind of building up towards getting that long-term play time, then that end of the season span is really a great time to have them. And for a guy like Javonte Williams especially, I think there's huge opportunity there.
Definitely one thing's for sure, for fantasy owners, there is no shortage of rookie talent in this draft. There is no shortage. Any single position you go, you can really hit a score late in the drafts.
I'm going to piggyback off Michael, though, and I'm going to say that Najee Harris is the most important rookie that you have to draft in your fantasy drafts this year.
He's a costly ADP, though, baby. You're going to have to spend maybe a first or early second to get him. I mean, I like Najee Harris, but the thing, volume is king of fantasy because, listen, Harris could be looking at 20 carries a game. Very realistic.
I think he's in 20 to 25 number. I think
that's
where he's at.
Yes. And that's great. I just don't know if he's going to live up to his ADP. That's why I'm always scared to draft these guys. I mean, look at him. Like, he's great, and we think he could be great. But
no NFL track record. I got you.
No, but, dude, look at their offensive line. The Steelers' offensive line is pretty much
they're falling apart. I know.
It's an entirely new turnover, and I just don't know if I love Najee Harris for that price. I mean, I'd almost rather get an Austin Eckler because that's pretty much where the ADP is, or Antonio Gibson. Like, Antonio Gibson's an absolute beast. Like Gibby from iCarly grew up to be Antonio Gibson. Like, absolutely.
but Gibson with Ryan Fitzpatrick this year is really going to be something to look at.
It is. The one thing that bothers me about Gibson, it's not his fault. Like, as much as they say they're going to include him as a 3-down back, include him in the passing game, they're not going to.
Got J.D. McKissic.
Yes, he caught 80 passes last year. You're not going to discard a back who caught 80 passes who was predominantly a 3rd down and passing back. Like, he's not Alvin Kamara where he's on the field every single snap. So J.D. McKissic,
he's a good back too.
Yeah, but still, J.D. McKissick's going to be on the field, and he's still going to be getting probably, like, I would say he gets 55 plus catches this year. Like, they're not going to discard him. Yeah, so a Gibson's still a costly ADP at 13 or 14. But we're going to talk a little bit more fantasy later. So, Michael, tell us who's the dark horse college team to watch this year?
Right. So if you're kind of looking surface level dark horse, it's not like this team's crazy to hear about them talked about in playoffs, but I think Oklahoma really has their best year yet to possibly win the championship. Will that happen? Who knows? But looking at teams like Clemson, looking like teams like Alabama, they're going with no new quarterbacks, relatively young rosters. So the opportunity for Oklahoma with Spencer Rattler, their best defense in years, the opportunity is absolutely there. But if you're looking a little deeper, you want to see what team could potentially compete for a playoff spot that people aren't talking about at all. I think you look at UCLA. Now, this isn't necessarily this Chip Kelly praise. I like Chip Kelly, his Oregon days, unmatched, but there's still a lot of question marks about UCLA. However, Dorian Thompson-Robinson offers one of the highest ceilings of any quarterback in college football. The big question is, can he put it together? On the offensive line, you got probably the best tackle tandem in college football, definitely in the Pac-12 at least, with Alec Anderson, Sean Ryan, two very good tackles. You look at wide receivers like Kyle Phillips, tight end Greg Dulcich, and then the running back room is very talented as well. UCLA has some dogs on this offense, and then on the defensive side of things, they have plenty of edge rush capabilities. They have some very strong linebackers. I really like their cornerback room. They go about 3 deep with some very phenomenal players. This secondary is going to be very strong. The offensive line returns all their starters, which is absolutely huge for success. And, we talked about it earlier. That QB spot can really just propel a team. And Dorian Thompson-Robinson offers that ceiling to where if he gets going, UCLA is going to be very competitive. I know their odds are extremely low for even winning the Pac-12, but I think they win the Pac-12, and I think with a strong enough season and a few dominoes falling their way, they could very easily be a team that sneaks into the playoffs.
You know what? I like that Oklahoma tape because we've been hearing for a little while now that Spencer Rattler is like the best thing since sliced bread. So it's going to be interesting to see if he takes that step and he lives up to the hype. I mean, you've seen quarterbacks at the collegiate level get a lot of hype, and like you just said, they have one of their best defenses in quite a while. I mean, they got some surrounding pieces, and they're just one of those teams that you always have to be on the lookout for. Oklahoma's been a very good program for many years, and it's not unrealistic to see them make a run. What do you think, Kyle?
Quite frankly, for me, the team that I'm looking at as my dark horse college team lies in the same division as Clemson, and it's all about the U. I'm telling you.
Stop living in 20 years ago, bro. It's not 2001, bro.
I'm telling you though, you got to look out for Miami, man. Miami's a dangerous team. They're coming for Clemson's head. They want to take back the ACC with a vengeance this year. They want to avenge that loss that tight loss that they had last year.
Yeah,
not tight, but they played competitive until the fourth quarter, and then Clemson, started to pull away a little bit.
Yeah, and I think there's absolutely an opportunity for Miami to really have a great season. Returning a lot of experience is absolutely huge. De'Aaron King is a superstar at the college football level. I really like Mike Harley. The running back room is absolutely phenomenal with Harris and Lingard as well. And then, you look around at some of the other options on that defense. The big question mark is who's going to replace Phillips, who's going to replace Roche. I think they have some very young talent that's going to really step in and be able to really continue that trend of edge rushing production. Now, the big question mark for Miami is obviously what's going to happen with that run game. The defensive tackles I'm not worried about. Nesta Jade Silvera is one of the best defensive tackles in college football. I'm a huge fan of him. But that linebacker unit is still very much a question mark. There's still very much just issues in stopping that run game. So we'll see what happens with Miami. I think obviously the big question mark is how do they do against the run? How do they do against Clemson? But I think Miami's in for a good season, that's for sure.
How about our boy Nick Durst? He's checking in. He said Texas A&M going to do it this year. What do you think about that, Mike?
Man, Texas A&M is really just make or break at the QB spot. Haynes King is going to really be the question mark of this Aggies defense or Aggies offense. Sorry, Isaiah Spiller, Anaya Smith, Devin Arcane, arguably the best trio backfield in the whole college football nation. Anaya Smith going out to slot receiver, Chase Lane, Jalen Weidermeyer. There's plenty of guys all over this offense that can make plays. The QB really just has to take advantage of that. And I think, they have the talent to do it. The defense is very strong as well. But again, it just comes down to whether or not their QB can kind of keep the ship going in the right direction.
So, Mike, let me ask you, who are we eyeing for the 2022 draft? I mean, obviously, everybody always does this right after the 2021 draft. Everyone starts with the 22 mock draft. Is there a select few guys that you're really looking at? Maybe not the automatic names. I mean, I don't know if there's a Trevor Lawrence here that everybody's banking for the number 1 pick, but, there's always a couple guys that are coming out and they're going to be special. Who should we be on the lookout for?
Spencer's the number 1 right now, I would assume.
Yeah, Spencer Rattler is for sure the consensus number one guy. And I think he's honestly a little bit underrated in a lot of people's eyes just because of how slow he started out this past season. But really, in that back half of college football, there probably wasn't a better college football quarterback than Spencer Rattler. And I think he's going to come out with just continued domination in this next and probably final season for him with the Oklahoma Sooners. Really looking around at the QB class, a lot of talk about Sam Howell, who I think is still going to be viewed as a very nice prospect, but I think there's also room for someone to kind of slot into that number two, maybe even that number one spot at the quarterback's position. We see risers happen every year. You know, Joe Burrow came out of nowhere. Zach Wilson came out of nowhere. So it happens every year. There's going to be someone that really kind of flies up boards. Right now, the guy that I have as my number two QB is Matt Corral out of Ole Miss. You know, if you watch his box score, or if you look at his box score, there's 2 games where he throws 11 interceptions in total. 5 against Arkansas and 6 against LSU, or maybe flip that. I'm not sure, but it was bad. Like, those 2 games aren't something that you want to sell people on. But he only had about, I think, 13 or 12 interceptions for the entire season. So it wasn't a consistent issue. It's just those 2 games really just when he got down, he seemed to get down badly. But the yards per attempt,
he definitely imploded.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, you know, the turnover is a question mark, and it's something that a lot of scouts are going to want to see improved on whenever we enter this next year. But the arm talent's there. The ability to work different arm angles, the ability to layer the ball as a passer is absolutely huge. And Corral does all that. He checks all those boxes. He's mobile, you know, a little bit smaller. He's about 6'2", 200, so nothing crazy in terms of size. But, you know, if he's able to shake off these turnover issues, which he's shown a great ability to work downfield as a passer, I think there's going to be a real chance that he cuts down those numbers and starts to fly up boards. But, you know, some deeper cuts, you know, we talked about Dorian Thompson-Robinson. If he can get those things together, I really like Jack Plummer out of Purdue. He's someone that I think has very nice overall ability. I think there's still some question marks in terms of mobility and just overall mechanics that need work. But also there's plenty of guys at the G5 level. Caleb Ellaby out of Western Michigan is someone that has gotten a lot of love. Western Michigan probably poised for a very big season out of the G5 group, so keep an eye on him. And then, you know, there's just options all around. Even someone like Bo Nix, who really was as shaky as you come last year for Auburn, if he can get work with Brian Harsin, who has a history of working with very accurate passers like Kellen Moore, Colt McCoy, and if he can get that consistency as an accuracy standpoint out of Bo Nix, then Bo Nix could fly up draft boards as well.
Yeah, well, Jarrett Stidham hasn't been working out too well for Auburn quarterbacks. Now we'll have to find out how Cam Newton's going to do this year and fare off fighting off Mac Jones.
Absolutely. You know, I'm rooting for both of them. I'm a Patriots fan myself, so, you know, I'm praying one of them works out, but I'm hoping that Mac Jones can be the future.
Do you honestly feel comfortable with Mac Jones?
I think that Mac Jones in a situation like the Patriots doesn't have to be this game-breaking QB. You know, I think I expect him to do well. I don't expect him to end up being the top QB of this class unless it's just, you know, just ending up on the most successful team consistently. But in terms of just getting the job done, I think Mac Jones has a lot of traits that should be able to accomplish that. Big question mark is how he adapts to maybe not being the most mobile guy in a league that's kind of trending that direction.
Love that cigar photo of him, man, with the 2 quarter and that big old pop belly.
He's got to be good now, you know. After a photo like that, you're a legend. You're a legend already.
That's peak male physical performance
condition right there. That's
absolutely.
Right.
So, as we're rounding it back into the NFL, let's talk about some fantasy draft strategy. So, especially now, like I've been getting, and I'm going to be putting out a lot of content, so everybody just hang with it. Just follow to JohnnyVTV. We're putting out a lot of stuff, and we're going to be talking about it over the next few weeks. But a lot of people have been asking me, like, what's the strategies? And okay, let's put it this way. Depending on where you draft, depending on your league settings, if you're a basic 12-team league, half PPR or PPR, that's all well and good. If you're top 5, you know, you're probably getting a running back. Now, when you're in the middle rounds, that's where it gets a little dicey. In my opinion, I would prefer to have, unless like a Derrick Henry fell to me, I would probably rather have a top 2 receiver than the 6th or 7th best running back. Now, what that means is I have no problems, and I said it last week on taking a chance on a Saquon Barkley. I have no problem with taking that chance. That's a big dice roll. That is a very big dice roll because if something happens to him or he doesn't pan out, then you're looking at a real uphill battle.
But you basically think that after Saquon Barkley, you're not going to get anything in the top 4.
Well, no. So here's the
back.
thing, because now I don't understand why he's being so undervalued. Nick Chubb, man. Nick Chubb is a strong bet to finish right behind Derrick Henry for the rushing title. He's as good of a bet as any back in the league to finish behind Derrick Henry for a rushing title. If something happens to Henry, knock wood, because I hope it doesn't. I love Henry. If there's one guy to fill that void and win that title, I think it's going to be a Nick Chubb, because he's awesome. Like, he gets a lot of carries. He could take over a game. He's in a run-first offense. But then, listen, you go to a guy like Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler's back. He's healthy. He's a new offense. He's got Justin Herbert. I think he's going to absolutely eat this year as a runner and as a receiver. Now you could also roll the dice, on the guys like Antonio Gibson, Najee Harris, Jonathan Taylor, those guys in that early second tier, that second round. But in my opinion, if you're a middle to late pick, I think you probably go double up on receiver. So you could get an Adams, Hill, Diggs, and then turn right around. You get a Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, or maybe a Papa DK Metcalf.
So you say you're 5. Let's give you an example. You're 5th in a 12-team PPR. What are you taking first 2 rounds?
I mean, if he's there, I'm taking Derrick Henry, because I can't not take Henry. Now let's put it this way. This is more interesting. Let's say I'm 7, 8, or 9, because that's the money round. 7, 8, or 9, man. I have no problem taking Nick Chubb. I love Nick Chubb. Absolutely. I love him. But if I'm 7, 8, or 9, I'm probably going to take Adams. And I'll tell you why. Now, I would love to have Tyreek Hill, but I would take Adams because if you take Adams on the swing around, you get a Ridley or a Hopkins. Then what that allows me to do is in about the 6th or 7th rounds, you might have to reach for him in the 6th. You could take an Aaron Rodgers. Now, I'm ordinarily not an advocate for taking a QB that early, but if the situation dictates, if you got Adams and you could get Rodgers in the 6th, maybe the 7th, it's a no-brainer. You got to pair the two of them together, and I think they're in for big seasons. But both
of them for sure.
In my opinion, there's no sure thing layup running back towards the end, other than maybe a Nick Chubb or the other best thing is Austin Eckler. What do you think, Mike? Do you think there's a guy that you're looking at as a running back that you're saying it's a layup? Or, in my opinion, I think a lot of these guys could have good seasons. I think they will, but I just don't know if they're going to live up to their ADP, and I don't want to overpay just because of the premium on the running back position.
Yeah, so first and foremost, I just want to say a month ago, I was sitting here thinking to myself, Cam Akers is my guy. I'm all in on the Akers train. Sean McVay has an easy offense for any running back. Stafford at QB is going to make the box unable to be stacked, and Akers is going to feast. And then, the injuries come along, and it's just heartbreaking stuff. Shout out to Cam Akers. Hope he recovers extremely well. Hope he comes back and is able to be a killer. But, looking at this running back group, I think my guy right now is Aaron Jones. And I know that A.J. Dillon is very much the big shadow in that backfield of, is he going to overtake it? But Aaron Jones has always been a guy that's kind of made production on limited touches regardless. So even if they kind of have that split backfield, I think there's still such an opportunity for Aaron Jones to continue to be a star that I'm still very comfortable taking him. I really like Eckler. I think he's going to be a stud. But, a guy like Aaron Jones, I think, has just consistently been one of the top backs in the NFL, one of the top backs in fantasy. And while that touchdown opportunity in the goal line, red zone, looks may be limited, I think he's such a superstar that he's able to really make those plays in the run and passing game that's going to keep him at least, in that top 8 running back group. And I think that's something that, for a lot of people, they want that consistency.
That's interesting. I love Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones was a league winner for me in 2019. I went out and I celebrated at 11 afterwards. It was awesome, dude. I love Aaron Jones. But what I can't stand, and I wrote this, so I'm releasing my fantasy draft rankings later this week or early next week. But one thing in my notes I said about Aaron Jones, it has nothing to do with him. Nothing. I cannot stand Matt LaFleur. I've never liked Matt LaFleur because even going back to when he was the OC for the Titans, before Derrick Henry started breaking out, I couldn't wrap my head around why. And Kyle, you know why. I couldn't wrap my head around why Derrick Henry wasn't eating. And then he was splitting backfield with him and Dion Lewis. I didn't get it. And then he had the brain blasting Jimmy Neutron type of idea to say, hey, you know what? We have a Big Mac truck as our running back. So you know what? Let's give him 20 carries a game. Then what happens? They do. Henry, boom, becomes the best runner in the league, never looks back, goes on an absolute tear. So he does the same thing with Aaron Jones. He did the same thing with Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. And Williams is a solid back. I don't have anything against Jamal Williams. A.J. Dillon's a beast. Like, that's why they drafted Dillon, to be the heir apparent. Like, I thought Aaron Jones would be gone after last year because they drafted Dillon so high and they refused to get Rodgers' help. But, Dillon is going to be in that situation that Jamal Williams was. I mean, maybe more. The kid's an absolute freak of nature. I just don't like it. Like, what if Aaron Jones is in a 65-35 in his favor backfield with Dillon? I don't love that for a first-round pick. Aaron Jones, late second, early third last year, you could get away with it. But as your number one pick, as your RB1, listen, Jones can make the most out of limited touches. You're 100% right. But I like to know that my guy that I took a chance on that high is going to be getting the goal line carries. He's going to be dominating backfield touches, and he's not going to be playing Splitsville. Because if that's the case, I'd rather take A.J. Dillon late, handcuff Jones, and, try and hit on one of these other guys. Or I'd rather take a Nick Chubb, because as great as Kareem Hunt is, we know Nick Chubb's still good for 20-plus touches a game. And we know come down to crunch time, come down to salt the clock away in the fourth quarter, Chubb's going to get one. And guess what, bro? He can still break a 60-yarder when they're salting the game away, because Nick Chubb is that guy.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that. Chubb is one of the best pure runners in the game. And also just looking around at that group, the back end first round, the early second, that pretty much that post 5 group. I think the big question mark there, kind of a lottery ticket of sorts, is Ezekiel Elliott. With the lost weight, I think a lot of people are kind of wanting to get their hopes up again. With Dak back, with the offensive line healthy, the opportunities are really there for Zeke to be a stud again, but he's burned so many people in the fantasy community. I kind of want to get your thoughts on that, because I think Zeke is someone that I've won so many leagues or just done well with Zeke.
Let me tell you what. I will tell you. I have Zeke rated as my 8th back right now, and I think I might move him down a little bit. And let me tell you why. Yes, he's back healthy. He's back in a healthy offense, but let's not forget here, Jerry Jones doesn't care about winning games at the end of the day. He cares about selling tickets. That's why the Dallas Cowboys are the most valuable franchise in sports in the world, because he likes to sell tickets. He likes to do everything big. And guess what? He wants Dak. After what he saw last year, he wants Dak throwing the ball 35 times a game. That's why he went out and got CeeDee Lamb with Amari Cooper, Gallup. I mean, they want to put up points. And I'm not saying Zeke's not going to be a part of the offense. Like, I think Zeke's going to have a good year, I'll say. But the reason I'm listing him as a bust this year is because it's going to be based on his ADP. Now, if Zeke has, let's put it this way. If Ezekiel Elliott comes out, plays all 17 games, let's say he has 250 carries. Let's say he has 250 carries, 1,150 yards, and 7 touchdowns. That's a solid season. I'm not going to complain about one of my guys having that. But I will complain if I spend a 3rd or 4th overall pick, and that's what he gives me. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And he's not putting up anything special in the receiving game. Let's say he's putting up 45 catches for 375 yards and 2 tutties. That's okay, but I don't think Ezekiel is going to live up to expectations here. I might be wrong. And you know what? That's fine. That's absolutely fine. But I don't love Zeke this year. I don't think he looks the same. He does not look like the same guy that was in 2016 and 2017, 2018. He looks a little bit like he lost a step. They're not on the same offensive line. There's a lot of changes. And guess what, bro? They flat out said that we're probably not going to lean on Zeke 20 to 25 carries a game. They said they're going to lighten his load. Yes, he's gotten a lot of snaps historically. So just because they lighten his load doesn't mean he's not going to get a lot of touches. But dude, I don't think Tony Pollard's going away. Tony Pollard's good. He's dynamic. He's young. He can make plays. I just don't buy Zeke this year for his price. However, if Ezekiel Elliott was going at the end of the first round, beginning of the second, that was his ADP. Hell yeah, bro. I'd take a chance on him. Why not? Sure. Why not? I would take a chance on him because he's still talented. He's still a goal line guy. He could still get you 12 to 15 touchdowns this year. No doubt. But I just don't think he's worth a top 5 pick. I would literally rather draft him. If I had 5th pick, right? If I had 5th pick and Henry, Cook, McCaffrey, Kamara were gone, I would probably forego Zeke. I might forego Saquon. If I was going to take a back, I probably would take Nick Chubb. If I was going to take a receiver, I would take Devontae Adams before Zeke.
Would you reach for Chubb or for Eckler there? But you
at the 5th? Yeah. I mean, honestly, to be safe, dude, I might just go the Devontae Adams route if I was at that position. That's just my opinion.
Why not? Right.
Because him and Rodgers in the last dance, like, I think we could realistically look at Devontae Adams to have somewhat of an encore of last year.
He might have a 1,400-yard year.
He could. I mean, he's missed a couple games, but like, dude, he might have.
He plays 17 games, 18. He plays 17. If he plays 17 games this year, then.
Hold on, what do you have last year? Let me look real quick.
Yeah, sure.
He had 115 for 1374 and 18 touchdowns. Like, are you serious? Like,
so definitely doable 1,400.
Yeah, man.
Bump it up on another 200. I'll say 1,600.
If Devontae Adams plays all 17 games, he could realistically have 120 for 1,450 and 20 touchdowns. Like, I mean, it's not even funny.
Staggering.
It's staggering. As a running back, like, I know what I'm going to get out of Nick Chubb. Like, yes, peak ceiling Zeke and Saquon Barkley at their peak will probably offer me more on a weekly basis than Nick Chubb will. But it's a huge dice roll, man. What do you think, Mike? Like, does that answer your question about Zeke?
No, yeah, I understand the concerns 100%. He's someone that I've just had so many times in fantasy, and now last year I was lucky enough to get Dalvin Cook early, made a huge trade for Kamara. I won. But, the opportunity to get Zeke, I didn't buy in, and, he was a lot less productive. And, it sucked to see. And I was like, man, if he loses weight, he could be good again. And then I'm hearing all these reports. Zeke's lost 10, 15 pounds. The offensive line's healthy. Dak looked phenomenal in the games that he was playing. It's just I'm tempted to go back in on Zeke, but we'll see what happens. Obviously, it's an auction draft, so I kind of got to just play the values right. But, I think real quick, just before we move on to whatever is next on the categories, the best strategy is really trying to get guys that are going to consistently produce for you. And I know that's easier to say more so than actually get. But, if you're looking at an offense that's going to be producing a great team, Packers, Cowboys that are probably going to be putting up points every week. Guys like that, getting pieces of that offense are going to be a lot more rewarding than someone who's maybe getting a lot of volume as a wide receiver 1 in a bad offense, but is going to get shut down anytime they have to go against a strong defense. You're looking for a guy that is going to get you 8 on his bad days more than the guy that's going to get you, 0 or 2 on his bad days. So I know that, these boomer bust players are super enticing. The volume for guys that are on bad teams is super enticing, but at the same time, good offenses are going to get you the most results. So look for those guys more so than someone who's maybe, the top option on a bad team. A guy like Brandon Cooks, yeah, he's great for a late round value, but at the same time, that Texans offense is going to have some games where they just put up 3 points, and Cooks is going to get you 2.8 points for the season or for the week, and you're going to lose that week if you start them. So, try to find those better offenses. And there's some late round options that I think could absolutely win you some leagues. Gerald Everett out of Seattle Seahawks. We've seen Russell Wilson put together some great games with some random tight ends. Will Dissly, was.
I was going to say you don't think Disley's going to contend for those touches there?
Disley's his boy. Watch out there, Mike. Disley's his boy.
I'm just saying. I think he's the better blocking tight end there, so he'll be in on more packages. So I feel like it'll be easier to work him in the passing game.
Yeah, I think both are going to be able to have their production. I don't trust Disley to play 6 or 17 games now. And I think that's where the big question mark for me comes in. I think Gerald Everett was brought in with the idea that, hey, we're going to have someone that's going to be a consistent receiving threat. I really think, though, for both tight ends, the opportunity is going to be there. No one's going to leave the top open because DK Metcalf will torch you every single time. Tyler Lockett's going to be working outside extremely well. They brought in Dwayne Eskridge, who's going to be able to take off the top extremely well. also. So now you look at the tight end spot, that underneath area for Gerald Everett, for Will Dissly is going to be wide open. And I think the production is going to be there heavy. I lean Everett. If you lean Dissly, these are guys that are going undrafted entirely. So this is a last round kind of lottery pick. So whichever one you lean between those two is absolutely worth it. Someone who's maybe not going undrafted, but someone that I think is a late round steal, Russell Gage. I know I talked about how these offenses will have these, bad weeks, but Russell Gage is someone that's going to be taking Calvin Ridley's role as Ridley kind of takes Julio's. And we saw plenty of weeks where Julio was out and Russell Gage was able to produce. So absolutely opportunity. Kyle, looks like you want to say something. What's up?
I was going to ask about Zacchaeus there for Gage, contending against Gage there for those.
Yes, Zacchaeus is an interesting situation. He's definitely an undersized type guy that's going to be working in the backfield at the receiver spot. I think Zacchaeus is going to be more competition for someone like a Cordell Patterson, where he's getting some wide receiver snaps, he's getting some running back snaps, but overall he doesn't have like a significant role in the offense. So I think Russell Gage is going to be able to hold on to that spot pretty well. Really, the big question mark with Gage for me is how much are they going to be spreading out Kyle Pitts out wide and having Hayden Hurst be the inline tight end? Because then that could limit the opportunities for Russell Gage, but I think the opportunity is still there for him to be a very strong, low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3, which is very nice in those teen rounds.
Let me tell you, I if there's anybody that knows how we use Russell Gage, it's me here. So the thing is, he was taking over as the slot guy, which that's great. Like he ate up a lot. Like so, the big reason for Gage's production last year was because Matt Ryan had to throw a ball a lot. They were playing from behind. The running game sucked. Like he had a couple games from Todd Gurley. Like when I say a couple, I mean like legit 2, and. They just had to throw the ball a lot, and Julio was in and out of the lineup. So I think Pitts, he's going to get a lot of looks. Ridley, I think I'm going to say this now, and I saw the clip today when he just cooked Byron Jones, and I've been saying this last week or so. I think Calvin Ridley is going to finish as the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy. I think he's going to lead the league in receiving yards. I think he might be top 2, 3 at worst in targets. They're going to throw the ball a lot. I think Arthur Smith is going to get creative to get him the ball, but more importantly, he wants to reestablish the run in this offense. So that's going to take on, different scheming for a guy like Ridley. Now, of course, it might take a little time to grasp the offense, but same thing for Russell Gage. Like Gage is going to be picking up the slack. Like he's the wide receiver 2 right now. So he's going to be getting a lot of the slot work if they line Kyle Pitts up out wide. And, especially if they look to double Ridley, which I don't think you can if him and Pitts are on the field at the same time, because nobody's going to try and leave Kyle Pitts one-on-one. That would just be ridiculous. And Russell Gage is going to get a lot of these nickel corners. There aren't too many good nickel corners. Like I could legit see Matt Ryan throw the ball 32 times on average per game. I could see Calvin Ridley getting 15 of those targets. I could see Pitts getting 10. I could see Gage getting 8 and then spread it out among everybody else. Honestly, no, that takes them all. But, in some average of the sense, because we could also see Matt Ryan throw the ball 45 times in a game. Like, I still think they're going to try and run the ball, but I think Gage is probably due for about 8 targets a game. Like, his floor could realistically be 4 catches, 40 yards, maybe a touchdown. But if that's his floor, that's not terrible. Like Gage was eating for a good part of last season. So I definitely like Gage as a late round flyer.
Absolutely. And, there's always seems to be those late round rookie backs that kind of take up a huge role. The guy I like this year is Jared Dokes in Miami for the Dolphins. Been a lot of talk about Myles Gaskin. Been a lot of talk about Salvin Ahmed, Malcolm Brown potentially becoming that starting back. I think Dokes is the guy. I really do. And, I think early on, you're not going to see it because I think they're going to try to get Gaskin and Brown getting all the carries. But I think Dokes is going to work his way into that rotation fairly early. And then in time, I think he's going to be the main back in that backfield because really the opportunity is there. And I think Dokes has a great mix of power, receiving ability, and just overall takeoff speed.
You think Myles Gaskin's going to get second fiddled? I don't know, man. Gaskin was good when he was on the field last year. Now,
yeah, I think Gaskin's fine back, but a lot of these running backs that kind of get taken over aren't necessarily bad. It's just someone that really kind of takes that job. A lot of times it seems like it's this back that seems a little safe, and then they get overtaken because they're just kind of middling more so than dominant. Gaskin definitely has the ability, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it become kind of a split backfield type thing, but I think Dokes has the talent and really just if the opportunity's there, which Miami has seemed to be kind of indicated to be looking for that running back, especially with the random Brown start. Not sure what the whole deal was with that, but if they're looking to have a guy kind of split that backfield, maybe even take on more than a split, I would be surprised if Dokes is the one that fills that kind of role for this season.
Now, if I could close out the draft strategies here just a little bit, Mike. Alvin Kamara finished as the number 1 back last year. Where his average draft position is this year, do you see him repeating?
Henry was the one. Kamara finished as the 2.
Was that in regular leagues or was that PPR leagues?
It's PPR. That's as a fan. That's from Fantasy Pros. So I think it's as of.
So PPR. It's not. Oh, it is PPR. Okay, all right. So, but point is, do you see him finishing as a top 3 back again with the change at quarterback and possibly, maybe injury concerns?
Yeah, I think the interesting situation for Kamara there is how much usage he's going to get early is definitely enticing, but we could see that kind of result in a little bit of regression in that back half of the season, which, we talked about earlier is extremely crucial. I'm not one to doubt Kamara. He won me a league last year, like I said a little bit earlier. So, I'm going to bid as much as I can on the guy as realistically possible. But, I think that 7-game performance definitely is a big booster for that, and it kind of pushed him up a few spots. So, just play it smart. If he's there, at that 3, 4, 5 spot and you like him, go ahead. But, if you're picking at number 1, number 2, be cautious because there's definitely other guys that are going to be consistent and be putting up performances. And, a guy like Derrick Henry or, Christian McCaffrey, whatever, I think the production's just there week in, week out. Whereas Kamara, he's going to have some games where maybe it's not on him, but just that offense is going to have some bad spots. And with Michael Thomas gone, the touches should be there, but, we'll see what happens in terms of just overall dominance. So definitely in that top tier of backs, but I think there's still some question marks for him as well.
Here's my issue with Alvin Kamara. We talked about this with our boy Joe Volpe last week. He's a stud, you know what I'm saying? But now that Drew Brees is gone, and we saw it once Taysom Hill took over, he was nowhere near the same producer. Taysom Hill wasn't checking the ball down. Kamara's power is he's a PPR machine. I've seen him get 20 targets in a game, and it disgusts me that certain receivers don't get that. Alvin Kamara's put up these receiving numbers because he's getting 20 targets in a game. I've seen him get multiple games with 17 or more targets as a running back. It disgusts me. Unless you're a fantasy owner, I can't stand it. But he lost a lot of his power because he wasn't getting the checkdowns. That's where it comes from for him. I said it last week. He's never had a 1,000-yard rushing season. He might get that this year now that they have an extra game. Yes, he's super efficient. That's great. That's awesome. But let me tell you something. Volume is king in fantasy. So if Kamara is not putting it up as a receiver, which he's probably going to see a regression, even if Winston starts, because Winston is more of a look down the field. Now take it with a grain of salt. I do think Kamara will produce. I just don't know if he's going to produce. If you're taking him as a 4th overall pick,
you don't know if he's going to produce those Drew Brees numbers that he.
Yes, what you're saying is you're saying he's going to produce and finish at least as a top 4 back. I don't know if that's the case. In my opinion, I would much rather have Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is a sure thing. Knock wood. He's a penciled in 100 yards. I think the PPR is cool, but everybody gets too caught up with how many catches their running back has. Derrick Henry's a beast, dude. Derrick Henry is King Henry. Kamara might get his first 1,000-yard season. He doesn't get a lot of volume in the running game. He's very touchdown dependent. A lot of his success is predicated on the big play or on, the receptions. It's all part of it. I totally understand it. But I just don't love it, even if Winston's the starter. I think he'll produce, don't get me wrong. I just wouldn't expect an 80-catch season again from Kamara if Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston's the quarterback. I would seriously think about taking Henry if you have him, because how could you not take a guy who this year is – I highly doubt he's going to see many loaded boxes, which has not been the case for the last couple of years. He's probably going to see 5, 6, maybe 7-man boxes. Because guess what? Most of these defenses aren't going to be singling Julio or singling AJ. They have 2 receivers that can toast any corner in football. Any corner. So you double one, bro, that's wide open for King Henry.
Bro, it's
Real
beautiful.
quick,
It's beautiful to hear you talk like that, John. I haven't had anybody talk about my football team like that in a long goddamn time.
It's goddamn truth, baby.
Real quick before we move on, I just want to make a quick prediction here on the show about the Saints. I'm going to say that Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill both start week 1 for the Saints. Jameis at QB, Taysom Hill out wide at wide receiver, because who else is going to start there? I mean, Traquan Smith, whatever, Marquez Callaway, whatever. Sean Payton loves him some Taysom Hill, and I think
Swiss
Taysom
Army
Hill
knife
is going to line out wide for the Saints, get a lot of reps at slot, whatever. I think both are going to start come week 1.
Love that, man. You know what? I wouldn't bet against you on that. I wouldn't.
I think Michael just unlocked the code there for cheating on week 1 of Taysom Hill.
All right, Kyle. All right, so as we're wrapping up the show here, let's get to the gambling innings. Best betting trends are only talk of baseball tonight. We got the Yankees run line -1.5, -146 on FanDuel against the Minnesota Twins. The Yankees have been absolutely cruising. They've been looking very good. The Twins are trash. And even with Jamison Taillon on the mound, I think New York might be able to spot 7 runs to the plate, win at least 7-5. Love to see it. New York, they're looking not only for a wild card spot, they're coming back on Tampa for a division spot. Who would have thought it? I still didn't think it.
I called it.
Kyle, this is not your segment. This is my segment, so shut up. Next, we got the Brewers run line -1.5 at -115. Guess what? Who's pitching? We have one Brandon Woodruff with a sub-2.2 ERA. It's just an absolute thing of beauty to see Milwaukee looking fantastic because their pitching is so good. They're going to get the St. Louis Cardinals tonight, and a true disappointment this year. Although the odd thing is they are over 500. They're 2 games over 500, but I think at -115, it's a very good price with Brandon Woodruff on the bump. I think the Brewers could take this game 2-0 or better. I mean, Corbin Burns pitched the other night. They won 2-0 against the Cardinals. I don't see why they can't go for the sweep and win by 2 runs tonight. Your Honor, no objections. Let's get after it. It's the Gambling Guineas Weekly Taste. So we have our emerging player of the night. I mean, I guess technically of the day. I finally had another say. I said Miguel Cabrera, first baseman, DH of the Detroit Tigers. There's so many other players. Why did I choose Miguel Cabrera? Anybody following sports knows he's closing in on his 500th home run. Miguel Cabrera, listen to me, is going to go down as one of the 5 best hitters when he retires. Miguel Cabrera and Albert Pujols are 2 of the 5, maybe 10 best hitters we've ever watched play the game. And we grew up watching them.
First Triple Crown winner since Yaz.
Yep, absolutely. Like Miguel Cabrera, I think he went 2 for 5 today with 4 ribbies. Like had a very good day against the Angels. Did they play the Angels? I think they play the Angels.
But that's a solid day at the plate there.
Yeah, dude. Miguel Cabrera could still hit. Like he's not the same guy, obviously, but that boy can still swing the bat. So I was wrapping up here. Mike, what are some of your final thoughts?
Yeah, real quick. We talked about the NFL draft coming up 2022. I didn't focus enough, though, on the defensive talent in this class. Kyle Hamilton out of Notre Dame is going to be a phenomenal safety that I think might be my number 1 prospect overall when it's all said and done for this draft class. And then there's a bunch of pass rushers. George Karlaftis out of Purdue, Kayvon Thibodeau out of Oregon, DeMarvin Leal, who's like pretty much a Cam Jordan clone out there at the defensive end spot. And I don't say that lightly. There is plenty of defensive talent in this class, especially out of the edge rushing and, defensive line group. So really just wanted to emphasize on that. And then the cornerback class, Derek Stingley, Andrew Booth, there's guys for defensive needing teams, especially, a team like the Falcons that maybe could add anyone anywhere. So definitely great opportunities.
Now, Derek Stingley, is he the son of Stingley Sr. that took that hit from Jack Tatum?
I'm not sure, actually.
Okay. I might have to fact check that one, but yeah. And that guy Hamilton from Notre Dame. I'm a big Notre Dame fan, so You got any more info on him, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I mean, he's 6'4". He can fly around the field. Maybe needs to be a little bit more consistent as a tackler. Has a little bit of misses, but the frame, the ability, he can work as a free safety. He's a great strong safety already. Kind of reminds me of a former Notre Dame product, Harrison Smith. I think there's plenty of similarities there, and I think when his time comes in the NFL, this is going to be the first safety off the board, almost guaranteed right now. You can bet on it. And then just as the time comes, I think he's going to become one of the best safeties in the league.
Okay, fair enough.
Love that, man. So I'd say my final thoughts are, listen, it's a preference thing. It really is. And maybe I'm just crazy. Like, I just can't resist. If you have draft picks like 7, 8, 9, 10, go get one of the top receivers, then swing back. Don't miss out on getting Calvin Ridley in the second round. I think he's going to be an absolute animal. I said I think he's going to be the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy this year. He's going to lead the league in receiving yards. He's in for a monster season. And listen, even if you really want a running back, what I would do is I would focus my attention on the guys like David Montgomery, Miles Sanders, DeAndre Swift in like the 3rd, 4th round. Maybe take a chance on a Travis Etienne in the 5th round. And then go target a guy like Zach Moss in the 8th. Now, I will say there is loaded receiver depth everywhere. You could get Tyler Boyd, DJ Chark, Antonio Brown in the 8th, 9th round. There's a lot of talent there, but there's nothing like getting the top 1, 2, 3, or 4 receivers at the position. Please double up unless you just feel like you have to take a running back. Yes, Kyle.
I was gonna say just get Javonte Williams in the 7th round. That would be my say for late running backs. That's all.
Love that. So, Mr. Michael Rochman, thank you so much for joining us. Please tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah, if you're looking to hear more of my ramblings, I tweet a little bit on
better than ramblings, man. They're really good.
I appreciate it. Yeah, at Mr._NFL Draft, just MR_NFL Draft. You can find me there. If you have anything you want to ask me, any questions or any ideas, feel free to at me anytime, and I'll try to get back to it as quick as possible. But really, thank you guys so much for having me on the show. Really enjoyed it. Talking football all day is just all I want to do. So anytime I get the chance.
Hey, man, your knowledge of college football is one that I could love, sir. That is some good stuff right there. We could chop it up all day about that. You and me, sir. All Saturday.
I appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Appreciate having you on, and we hope to have you on. You're a friend of the show, and we thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much, and everyone else, take care. Hope you guys have a good one.
All right, man. Take it easy. All right, that wraps it up for JohnnyVTV Live, and we're coming live next Tuesday. We got some more great fantasy football guests. We're going to help you get ready for your fantasy drafts, and we're coming in hot, baby, because the season is right around the corner. Thank you, everybody. Take it easy.